Even Barbara, who started with relatively high advantages, couldn't sustain her livelihood. Can those truly living at the bottom ever break through? Another popular narrative about poverty suggests people remain trapped because of their limited mindset, which leads us to our second discussion point. Are the poor trapped by low education and narrow perspectives? First, the book challenges the stereotype that low-skilled jobs require no special abilities. From her 3 experiences working minimum-wage jobs, Barbara's first realization was that no job is truly unskilled. All 6 jobs she worked demanded intense focus and mastery of new tools techniques, far more complex than educated people assume. At her first job in Florida's Hearthside restaurant, she had to learn a touchscreen ordering system. But servers still needed verbal coordination with cooks, like specifying gravy on mashed potatoes, not the meat. Got it? At her third Walmart job, returning clothes to racks became a spatial puzzle. She spent days memorizing locations in the 1,000 square feet department, equivalent to a large 3-bedroom apartment. Just when she mastered it, colleagues rearranged everything. Because regular customers visit 3 times weekly, requiring constant freshness.
Secondly, Barbara found grueling physical labor consumed her mental capacity. She said, endless focus on immediate tasks narrowed her will-do against her will. What began as an experiment became survival. She couldn't maintain hobbies.
Initially, she managed 1 hour daily reading.
Eventually, only TV zoning during dinners remained.
At Walmart, she clashed with a coworker over task distribution. Watching her colleague climb the ladder to hang clothes, Barbara felt a surge of wicked satisfaction, wishing to see them crash down.
She was shocked by her own malice and harshness afterward.
More terrifyingly, that same night she harbored similar malice toward another colleague who had no interaction with her.
While pushing a cart of returned clothes at Walmart, she saw a mobility-impaired night shift employee in a wheelchair.
Her immediate thought was, at least you're sitting. Did meaningless work make her cruel, or does 9-hour labor breed resentment? Barbara realized that when physically exhausted, civility vanishes, leaving primal cruelty. This isn't me, Barbara insisted. At least not who I want to be.
If you enjoy our show, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and share the excitement with others. Every subscription is a boost of motivation for me to keep going.
She witnessed her consciousness regressing, becoming scarier, pettier, and less intelligent than her privileged self.
Barbara also discovered terrible living conditions worsened her temperament and performance.
During her Walmart employment, she rented a $245-week motel near work.
The room reeked of paint fumes and rodent droppings.
With broken locks, no AC, and peeping neighbors, she felt constantly unsafe.
She developed a nervous habit of tugging her clothes during fitful sleep.
When her lease ended, she moved to a cheaper but slightly better motel.
After a full night's restful sleep, she noticed she stopped fidgeting with things. And even her work performance at Walmart improved dramatically.
Thus, long-term low-wage work causes severe mental exhaustion. Survival alone consumes all their energy. Even intelligent Dr. Barbara became petty and harsh after prolonged physical labor.
In other words, narrow-mindedness isn't the cause of poverty, but its consequence. And this explains why the poor struggle to escape class constraints and mental limitations.
Another deeper reason is the continuous erosion of self-worth. Barbara said, "The job hunting process makes people feel inherently inferior. You must present your experiences, real or fabricated, to evaluators who deem your offerings uninteresting." She observed how society dismisses low-wage workers as unintelligent janitors, ditch diggers, adult diaper changers. As a waitress, she joked with cashiers. As a cleaner, they coldly ignored her. This contempt makes workers feel like India's Dalit caste. A cleaning woman cried from lacking approval from the only male supervisor, her sole emotional connection.
Though greedy and cruel, he represented access to a better world.
In the maid company, he symbolized college educations, office attire, and weekend shopping sprees. Even Barbara unconsciously let her self-respect deteriorate. Initially, she refused jobs requiring humiliating drug tests. In Minnesota, she researched detox methods, using diuretics to flush her system for a Walmart drug test. She needed this because of accidental marijuana use and prescription ephedrine, a controlled substance. The principles Barbara once cherished were abandoned for minimum wage survival. As she wrote, drug tests and personality screenings create a workforce stripped of rebels, leaving only docile, dehumanized laborers. Few workers recognize their exploitation to seek better jobs or organize against corporate power.
Ironically, owning a house motivates cleaning women, their version of the American dream.
Though clueless about achieving it, perhaps the dark side of that dream.
Let's revisit our second question. Is poverty caused by low education?
Reality. The poor juggle multiple low-wage jobs while being deemed incompetent.
Their narrow perspectives aren't poverty's cause, but its consequence.
Exhaustion from survival labor leaves no energy for self-improvement, trapping them in cycles. Poorer people work harder. Working harder makes them poorer. This vicious cycle binds the working poor, diligent, yet unable to escape through labor alone.
Society's fundamental flaw brings us to the third question. What systemic forces cause poverty?
The working poor lack time and mental bandwidth for systemic analysis.
After 3 months undercover, Barbara identified the core issue: wages too low, rents too high. Rent crisis stems from market forces. Even uneducated poor understand this.
When rich and poor compete for housing in free markets, the poor always lose. Economic booms mean pricier, dilapidated housing or longer commutes for the poor. At $6.65 hour cleaning in Portland, Maine, her $120 weekly motel rent required 18.5 hours work. 7:30 a.m., 3 p.m. shifts paid 7 hours, needing 2.5 days just for rent. Missing 1 day dropped effective wage to $6, requiring nearly 3 days' pay for weekly rent.
Barbara was relatively fortunate to work during the Eichstome.
The same motel's rent surged to $200 during peak season, requiring over 4 days' wages just for housing. This meant she'd have to find worse housing unless securing additional income.
She took weekend shifts as a dietary aide at $7 an hour.
Working 7 days weekly barely kept her in a kitchen-equipped motel. Apartments remained unattainable. Society largely ignores housing crises because official poverty metrics fail to reflect reality.
Poverty thresholds calculate food costs multiplied by 3, but food inflation differs from housing. In the 1960s, food was 24% of household budgets, vs. housing's 29%.
By 1999, food dropped to 16%, while housing soared to 37%.
Barbara argues food-based poverty measurement is obsolete.
Distorted housing markets reflect government negligence.
Since the 1980s, public housing investments declined, rental assistance programs stalled in the 90s.
Paradoxically, homeowners receive more subsidies than renters.
As homeowner, Barbara received $20,000 plus annual subsidies during low-income periods. Such subsidies could sustain homeless families comfortably.
Why do wages stagnate despite labor shortages?
Employers prefer hiring new cheap labor over retaining experienced workers, trapping low-wage cycles. Meanwhile, CEO pay at top firms rose 940.9%, inflation adjusted from 1,978 2005. In 2015, CEOs at top 350 U.S. firms earned 276 times average worker pay, up from 21 ratio in 1965. When Barbara suggested raising wages to solve staffing shortages, her boss retorted, "We offer mom hours, letting workers leave at 3:30 p.m. to care kids. Employers provide free meals, shuttles, discounts, anything but raises, because benefits are easier to revoke than salaries."
Third question. Why don't workers rebel or seek better jobs?
Barbara observed, "The poorer people are, the more constrained their options become. Changing jobs risks transportation issues. Even car owners face fuel costs. They fear homelessness if taking unpaid time to seek better opportunities. The humiliation of returning to low-wage work paralyzes ambition."
As cell biologist, Barbara cites studies. Animals forced into subordinate positions.
Like lab rats, monkeys develop human-like depression and lose motivation to struggle, even for self-preservation.
As democratic socialist, Barbara attempted union organizing at anti-union Walmart.
During smoke breaks, she quietly rallied co-workers. Only one showed interest. She finally connected with a colleague about unbearable hours after quitting. Housing costs forced her to abort the experiment prematurely.
Deeper reason. Society systematically excludes the poor through political media silence.
In polarized America, poverty discourse remains taboo among elites.
Barbara wrote that media only highlights welfare reform's success stories, while downplaying widespread hunger, sometimes through deliberate deception.
from 1,996 welfare reforms to 2,006 million left welfare rolls.
Unreported, many faced starvation as top 20% elite dictate policies like minimum wage and labor laws.
The rich never see real poverty, while the poor constantly see curated affluence. TV shows about designers, teachers, lawyers make fast food workers feel abnormal. I'm the only one excluded from this beautiful world. The poor vanish from mainstream culture.
Their disappearance from politics, media. Academia answers our third question.
Society wrongly assumes employment solves poverty, ignoring working poor's deepening debts. Both Republicans and Democrats ignore this reality. Barbara notes,
Acknowledging it would admit welfare reform's catastrophic failure.
Returning to Barbara's core question. Why can't able-bodied workers survive?
Something is profoundly wrong, she concludes.
Her answer: society conspires to exploit cheap labor. The error: unchecked housing speculation without public support. The error: collective contempt that erases the poor from society.
Blaming the poor perpetuates their shame and powerlessness.
Barbara argues the wealthy exploiting the poor should feel profound shame.
She poetically calls low-wage workers society's anonymous philanthropists, neglecting their own children to care for others. They inhabit substandard housing so others' homes can gleam. They endure poverty to maintain low inflation and high stock prices, becoming nameless donors to society.
Nickel and Dimed, published in 2001, sparked global discussions, now 17 years later.
Yet society shows little improvement since its publication.
In 1998, Florida restaurants paid $7.50 an hour.
20 years later, in 2017, Florida's minimum wage reached $8.10. In Gainesville, where I lived, many still earn below $8 an hour.
My 2015 one-bedroom apartment cost $520 a month.
At $8 an hour full-time, 40% income went to rent. Not counting $300 deposits and $100 utilities.
The next year, rent jumped to $620, nearly half their wages.
American class solidification worsens, wealth concentrates, while opportunities shrink. 60% in polls believe the American dream is unattainable. 63% think children won't surpass their parents' living standards.
While this reality seems bleak, some experiments yield different conclusions.
American Adam Shepard tested the American dream in 2008 with only $25. Starting as a homeless man in his Undercover experiment, Adam secured a decent job within 10 months, enabling him to buy a pickup truck and rent an apartment. His story became the book Scratch Beginnings. Notably, Adam held dual degrees in business management and Spanish, was a physically fit white male with college basketball scholarships.
Barbara, conversely, was a divorced woman over 50 who concealed her HE, her key difference from her undercover persona.
Education transformed Barbara's fate from a miner's daughter to middle-class success. This educational foundation also enabled Adam's rapid financial progress.
The working poor lack this crucial starting point of quality education.
Adam's story doesn't negate Barbara's findings, but highlights education's vital role. Educational equity remains the key to breaking class barriers. That concludes our discussion of Nickel and Dimed.
Find key notes below the audio. See you tomorrow.